Hey there, you're listening to the Not So Breakfast Show with Sasha and Ish. All right, welcome to the podcast today, and it is going to be a banger because we're talking about one of our favourite TV shows of all times, Ted Lasso, and we're going to spend some time unpacking the learnings from a leadership perspective that show presented us and what it means to us and what we can take away from it. I'm really enjoying that we're going to be having this conversation, and who better to have it with than Sasha? How you doing?
I'm doing so good, and I'm excited about all the names because, first of all, congratulations, Ish. Ted Lasso, you've said it, and that's amazing. Because if you're a fan of the podcast, you'll know that Ish loves saying Ted Lasso, which is so fancy. But we've had quite a discussion about whether it's Lasso or Lasso. So we're going with Lasso, yes?
We're going to go with Lasso. And I think our lowest moment was when we put it into Google Translate to figure out how it was said. And it came out with a mix between the two. But closer to Lasso. Yeah.
And it's names, because last week we were sharing with you guys that we've been thinking about changing the name of the podcast. Mm-hmm. And we do have a new name. Drum roll. Whee! Thanks for all your feedback and suggestions. Ishmael, would you please reveal the new name of the podcast?
The new name of the podcast is The Not So Breakfast Show. It's the same name. It's the same name, Sash. But
we thought about it, and we were right the first time.
It's a great name. However, we are getting a new look and feel. We are getting some new branding, and we want to really kind of talk to the fact of why we called it the Not So Breakfast Show, because, you know, if you're not so confident, then let's do something about that. If you think about the premise of the show, it's about getting you not so nervous so you can be a great leader, and then not so average. So we're playing up the not so aspect of the Not So Breakfast Show and looking forward to playing off that in as many ways as we can come up with.
We know that many people listen in the morning on their commute, on their way into work, or dropping the kids off at school. And so it's like, instead of just listening to that breakfast show kind of feel good but rubbish that fills your brain, why don't you listen to the Not So Breakfast Show and learn how to be not so average and be not so uncertain about what's ahead and not so sure about what to do. We can help, and we want to help. And so if you're not so sure about how to pronounce Ted Lasso, come to the Not So Breakfast Show, and we're going to let you know.
We often talk about TV shows, and it almost feels like everything I learnt in life came from a TV show, so I'm pretty excited about this topic. And if you haven't seen the show before, there will be spoilers, I guess, in this episode. However, I don't think it's going to completely ruin it for you. I mean, it's 3 seasons. There's literally 34 episodes there for you to watch and binge. But we are going to be touching on certain aspects of the characters and certain undertones of leadership that are really kind of clear and evident as you begin to watch. Why don't we just high-level concept of what the show's about?
Yes, so Ted Lasso is a coach. He coaches American football. He's American, and he gets hired by the boss of a football club, so soccer as they call it in America, and the football club is called AFC Richmond, which is based in London, England. And so he comes over to coach this team. The person who's hired him wants him to be a miserable failure. And as the show goes on, we learn more about the owner of the club. We learn more about Ted Lasso, his sidekick that's come along with him, and we get to meet all the entertaining characters who are part of this football club.
It's such a great example of the transferable skills. So you've got Ted comes in, he's a coach, predominantly has coached American football his entire career, and now is bringing this skill into a sport that is completely unknown to him. Unknown sport, unknown environment, and is really just transferring everything he knows from a leadership perspective into how do I now lead this team. And what he's got around him is he's got coaches. Like, he's really good at basically saying, well, I can't do all of these technical things, but I know the high level of where I want to go, and I can enable the people around me to deliver. And he just built a high-performing team, basically, which then built a high-performing football team.
That may or may not, at the end of 3 seasons, win the entire thing. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Who's to say?
So I think Ted's character, the way I was kind of thinking of describing it was he's like fantastically broken.
Yes.
So I love the fact that he came in with flaws. Like you're seeing him basically at the end of the marriage in a way.
Yes.
I think he's using this as a way to walk away from his problems and give him and his wife some space. And he's taken this opportunity to do that. But I think that the realization becomes quite profound for him when he realizes that the separation is not so temporary, at least from her perspective. And really, so we kind of start to see the relationship unraveling. And as a response, we see him unraveling. Panic attacks, anxiety, depression. So the character that he is in front of his team, where he is like inspirational, the funny guy, the nice guy, and yet behind the scenes, he's broken. And really it kind of highlights the fact that everybody has issues. And I feel they dial up the vulnerability piece, that even in high leadership positions, it's okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to let people help you.
There's a real thread that runs right through the entire show that for so many of the characters, we see them as real people. So they have flaws, they're not perfect, and some of them are rooted to patterns of behaviour that don't serve them. And what we see with Ted is we see this kind of slow, kind of boiling point process that he's going through where the temperature's getting hotter and hotter and hotter in terms of the pressure from the environment, the pressure from his marriage, and how does he respond to that? And how does that outward kind of sunny, cheerful disposition, what is he battling underneath all that?
Yeah. And it seems to be that there's different triggers, right? So, I mean, from the moment he's on the ground, he turns up at the bar and there's the fans and they're just going, wanker. Like, they just, like, literally everybody hates him, right? And that doesn't seem to trigger him that much. Like, he's kind of, I guess, in that space where he's like, well, I haven't proved anything yet. Like, they're just judging me on nothing. And yet there'll be other things later on that he goes through, or something will trigger something that then you start to see the derailing. And I love it when the therapist comes in and really that message that, you know, therapy is good for everybody. Really, it doesn't matter where you are. Getting coaching, getting therapy, getting help is a good thing. And the way that even he responds at the beginning to that conversation, and that evolves over time and their relationship gets stronger, and of course he shares more and more stuff with her.
There's such a beautiful, I'm changing TV shows now, but there's a beautiful clip that's been doing the rounds on the internet of James Gandolfini from The Sopranos. And he's talking to his therapist about how he's about to give up therapy. I'm not fucking coming to this anymore. It's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. And by the time he's finished his 4 minutes, he's back in there totally kind of seeing the benefits of it, but also confronting the kind of, is this it? Is this all there is? And the beauty of what Ted Lasso does is it just shows everybody the power of having some outside help, some outside expertise, but you really see Ted grappling with whether he'll let people in and whether he wants to take part in that process. And I think so much of our professional and personal development comes when we get to the point where we say, okay, I'm ready. I'm ready to listen. I'm ready to engage in this. And to notice every time we're resisting opportunities to grow or opportunities for help. And I know sometimes I get invited to these women's retreats, come to this women's retreat, and almost without exception, it just fills me with dread. So like I roll my eyes and I'm like, I don't want to go to your women's retreat. And it's because I think I would be a destructive force. It's because I'm not ready to just sit in the stillness. And one day I will be, and I'm going to embrace it, and it's going to be amazing. But until then, I'm not going to be a destructive force. But at some point, the rubber meets the road and you go, it's time. It's time. I need to resolve this. I'm getting stuck.
One of the other things that happens a lot during the shows is you see Ted's, well, should we call them motivational speeches, or just the little sayings that come out, and some of them just appear so random because that's the funny nature of it. He just brings up an analogy. You're like, what has that got to do with anything? And then you'll kind of peel out this learning, but that's what makes him so likable and stuff. But then there's the real like overt ones where there's one where Sam, who is one of the football players, is just getting dominated on the pitch. And I think it was by Jamie, and Jamie comes up and just like has a go at him, like hassling him and, hope you're having fun down there. You can't hack it. And Sam gets up and he's deflated. And then Ted just walks over him and goes, you know what the best animal in the world is? And he's like, what? He goes, goldfish. You know why? I don't remember anything. Be a goldfish, Sam. Be a goldfish. And it's quite a powerful moment, and it's actually referenced a bit through all of the series. Oh. And for that player, there was a turning point because suddenly he was like, I need to let that go. And I think how many times in our jobs or careers do we get challenged on something, and maybe it does push an emotion within us and we can't let it go, but actually it may just be a goldfish. 15-second memory, move on. Yeah, I thought that was a really cool little leadership moment.
Yes, and certainly in a sport like golf. So, obviously my family play golf. One of my sons is a really good golfer. The very best golfers can hit a terrible shot and then they just let it go. It's done. And then they hit another shot. And the golfers that don't quite ever make it to the top, it's because they are replaying in their mind the bad stuff that just happened. So they had a bad hole and they're reliving it. The best ones go, it's finished. It's gone. I can't do anything about it now. New hole, new day, let's go. And it's not to say that we don't want to reflect on our mistakes and we don't want to learn from our mistakes, but we deliberately carry stuff with us. And I love the analogy of rocks, that some of our traumas and some of the things that have happened to us are big rocks. And we carry the rock and then we put it down. And instead of like moving on, we wake up in the morning and we go, I'm just going to go back to that rock that I put down 4 days ago. And I'm just going to pick it back up again because it kind of suits me just to carry it around today and say to everyone in my environment, look at this big rock I'm carrying. And people say to us, you should probably just put that rock down. I can't. No, you can. You could just put the rock down. And I think the goldfish kind of really speaks to that in a beautiful way.
Yeah. And otherwise, if you constantly are just replaying little events, you want to be clear-headed, but you're kind of going, I'm going to be clear-headed now. And you go, but I've got to think about that thing. And what about that happened the other day? Or that person didn't respond well. And suddenly we're not clear in our thoughts because of all the little things that we're also replaying in our head. So, yeah. Be a goldfish, man. Be a goldfish.
We'll be right back.
If there was one skill that could double your income, advance your career, and increase your ability to influence, it is the skill of presenting. Whether it's on stage, in the boardroom, or at a job interview, the 30-Minute Presenter program will help take you to the next level. So check out our Instagram page, click the link in the bio, and get started on the 30-Minute Presenter program.
Okay, so what are some of the other things that you love about Ted as the main character?
I love the fact that he doesn't judge someone by their lowest moment.
Tell me more.
He seems to see the best in everybody. So there might be something that happens and the person does something or says something, but it doesn't seem to change his perception of them. It's like they're at the lowest moment or they're at the bottom of the bounce. And I guess it's that whole positivity. He's glass half full guy, right? He's kind of going, but there's all of this potential there. And he seems to be able to speak into that or bring that out. And I think we see that in the character change with Jamie as he comes through from being the individual.
Jamie talked to Jamie talked to
so good. But that transformation from being the arrogant individual that only plays for himself, wants to be the centre of attention, score all the goals, and it's all about him, that transformation through to when he becomes more of a team player, in fact, sacrifices his own stardom, ego in order for the team to succeed. And that has been seeded by Ted. And then all of a sudden, the realization that I am part of a bigger picture. And there was actually one moment where that started to happen. And it was the one where Sam realized that their sponsor was doing a whole lot of stuff to his country, Nigeria, and was, mining and basically rooting the country. And so he got the duct tape out and he covered up the sponsorship logo. And then it was Jamie said, throw it here. And he goes, what are you doing? He said, well, we're a team. We need to wear the same uniform. And there's just the nod between the two that suddenly that was the realization. But that realization was seeded way before that moment, because Jamie never would have seen it. He would have just gone, whatever, it's about me. But because of all those conversations, suddenly the lights came on. He's like, oh, wait, I'm part of something bigger here.
It's that classic coaching thing about a coach is somebody who sees more potential in you than you see in yourself. And also that... we thrive when somebody calls to the best in us, not treats us as the way that we're necessarily behaving. And it's not that we want to infantilize people, but if you think about how patient you can be with kids or with somebody who's learning something, how many times you say, get up, go again, get up, go again, I think you're going to get this. And it's wonderful if we can, recognise those people in our lives who have done that for us. Who are our Ted Lassos? Who are the people that have given us hope, believed in us, picked us up when we were down? And how can we be that person for others? And what does that, what does that take? What would that mean?
Yeah, I love that. I also love the fact that he surrounded himself with a support network that he called the Diamond Dogs, right? He's just got his boys. Really, that was a lower level of therapy. It was kind of saying, look, let's discuss it. There's power in all of our opinions. Let's help each other work through these things that are happening. And a lot of them were around relationships. But as you kind of see even Roy, who was like not even interested at the beginning, like as soon as the door shuts, he's out, I'm going, off, But then towards the end, he's like, can I become a diamond dog? Suddenly he realized that there was power in community, friendship, support networks, and it was almost like they were on the same level at that point. It didn't matter if it was Nate the towel guy, if it was Trent Krim the independent, like it didn't matter who was in, or Higgins, it didn't matter who was in the room. It was just everyone's on the same playing field and we're talking about stuff and how we're going to look after each other. All right, Sash, so what were some of your favourite moments or things about Ted Lasso?
Well, I know that the right answer, because I'm a motivational speaker, is to say I love it when he takes the word believe and writes it and it goes up above the door. And he's really instilling those messages about belief and what it takes and that shared vision and all of that. But I also really love it when he just... every time he meets up with Rebecca's friend Sassy, they just go off and have like fantastic sex as consenting adults. And so I really like this idea that as a show, it plays around with lots of norms and conventions, and it just exposes us to all different cultures and ways of being. And it kind of does link back to this whole believe thing, which says you've got people in that team of all different faiths, from all different culture, and every time we get a team together, we need to look for how can we enhance the things we have in common. How can we build on the things that we share rather than highlight our differences? So, every now and again there'll be, I think it's the Dutch guy that says, and he's just really kind of straightforward and it's always a bit kind of blunt and they all look at him like, what? And he's like, I'm Dutch. And, some of these things are kind of cultural stereotypes. But the whole believe thing is it's there, it's visible, it's on the wall. It says, this is what we're about, this is what's possible. And, Ted just kind of lays that out as a pathway for people. And I think we've been talking a bit lately at Coffee Culture about this idea of a salt shaker. And the salt shaker is your role as a leader, as if you imagine that you are in a restaurant and you're teaching someone how to be a wait staff member, so that when guests leave or customers leave, you come back and you lay the table for the next guest. And the salt shaker goes in the middle. And if you're the manager of that and someone's put the salt shaker just a little bit off to the side, or they think the salt shaker should go on the edge of the table, your job all day, every day is to go, the salt shaker goes in the middle. So the salt shaker goes back in the middle. And this is an analogy of saying, around here, this is what's most important.
Yeah.
So I love believe as this concept that just brings everyone back to this is what we're about and this is what we're doing. And for us in our careers, how good are we at signaling this is true north? The salt shaker goes back in the middle. This is what we are about. What's the core beliefs that this organisation has, and what are we going for, and how do we keep coming back to that centre point? Because everybody strays. It's useful for our families. It's useful for our relationships. I mean, you notice how subtly within a relationship between two people, you just start getting a little bit off. You start getting a little bit offhand with each other, or you start having a few swears with each other, or whatever whatever it is. You just start not having dinner together so much. And before you know it, you're just having this, it's not a deliberate, hey, let's just drift apart. It happens because you don't keep regrouping and saying, hey, believe, or hey, salt shaker goes in the middle. These are the things that we aspire to and want to do.
Yeah. And that's where it's getting, as we talk corporate, but that values aligned, right? Like, what's our vision? What are our values? Are we aligned with those? And where are we heading? And I think when he puts that up on the wall, that's a pivotal moment in the show as well, because it keeps coming back to that sign. It keeps coming back to things that happen to that sign. And maybe we talk about that a little bit when we talk about the rise and fall of Nate. But it's that pivotal moment. It starts and ends with that.
Okay, so we're covering off Ted, like he's the eponymous character. What's your favourite scene with Ted that Ted's in?
My favourite scene is the darts scene, where he's playing darts, and basically the premise is Rupert, who is Rebecca's ex, who is just an asshole.
Rupert is bad.
He is bad. Do you remember Rupert the bear?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. I know why I went there. That's the first Rupert that came to mind.
My whole Rupert story is that when we first moved to Auckland, I met this guy called Rupert. Super cool, lovely guy. My mum can't say Rupert. I don't know why. She calls him Rupert, like with a D, like the noise that a frog makes. So my entire kind of teenage years from 15 to 18 was spent with mum saying Rupert and me saying, Rupert, it's got a T.
Brilliant. Well, anyway, so they're in the bar, and Rupert basically challenges Ted to a game of darts. And Ted's been, I guess, throwing a couple of darts, but not that great. And then suddenly he basically says to Rupert, he says, well, I'll tell you what, if you win, you can pick the lineup for the last two games, the actual starting lineup for the last two games of the team that he obviously co-owns and loves at that stage. But if I win, you can't go to the owner's box, because basically Rupert's threatening that he's just going to go in there and mess with Rebecca and say that she can't hack it and all this kind of stuff and just be relentless with it. So then Rupert kind of opens his darts. He goes, oh, I didn't realise I had these. And you realise that he plays darts. And then Ted just turns around and goes, oh, yeah, I forgot. I'm not right-handed. And just takes the shot, right? And they start playing. And then Ted, being Ted, just starts talking about the fact that, sometimes you meet people and you judge them a certain way, and you don't realise that every Sunday they used to go to the pub with their dad and play some darts with their mates, and they got quite good at it. And he's just telling this story about the fact that literally all through his teenage years, when he was spending time with his dad, he was playing darts. And he dominated and of course won the game. And I just loved the way that scene unpacked. It was pretty powerful.
It's an underdog story. It's the classic pissing contest where the big alpha male thinks that they're going to win, and Ted just ever so gently and creatively just dismantled Rupert. I think as sort of a cheer went up all around the world as that episode was released, when people were watching it going, yes! Yes, get him, Ted. Amazing.
What about you? Is there any scenes that you particularly remember or loved?
Oh, just so many. I mean, but I think one of my favourite ones doesn't involve Ted, but nice to introduce some other characters. So Roy Kent is very cool. He's very sexy, very just sort of like this alpha male character. He's very gruff. And we learn very late in season 3 that he doesn't know how to ride a bike.
Yes.
And so when Jamie Tart teaches him to ride a bike and they just have all these scenes where they fall over, that to me was beautiful television. So people that had been arch rivals or they hadn't got on, and over the course of the season they had got to know each other, and then they were having these vulnerable moments, one of them teaching another one how to do something as simple as riding a bike.
And they wanted to see a windmill because he did like, there's no such thing as windmills.
And I think there's lots of opportunity in our professional lives and our sporting careers and all of those environments that people who the world sets us up to be natural rivals actually are very powerful when we collaborate. And, there's lots of buzz around collaboration these days and what it means and what it looks like. But I just really notice every time I have a competitive response in me, and I'm, as you know, I'm ultra competitive. I want to be the best at all kinds of things that I do. So let's say I see another great speaker. I have an instinct that I want to crush them and be better than them. But seeing as I'm nearly 50, I'm getting over that. And instead I go, what can I learn from them and how could we work together?
Yeah.
Because how powerful would it be if we tagged up, did something together? What would that look like? Like, can I just say, Ash, the Not So Breakfast Show, that it would be really easy for you to go, I'll do a podcast on leadership. And then I see that and go, well, jeepers, if Ash has got one, I need one, clearly. But instead, let's just do it together. And how much better might that be? And how much more fun would it be to go 2 by 2?
Oh, totally, right? Well, that dynamic between Roy and Jamie, it's quite interesting how it starts because they're basically on the same team, right? They're playing together and Roy's kind of like the older one and he is struggling to keep up. Really, he's got to the end of his career and then Jamie's come in, who's really at the start of his career. But I love the fact that they introduce little things like the fact that Jamie had a picture of Roy on his wall when he was a kid, right? So Roy's like, little asshole, blah, 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 blah. But actually, Jamie idolized him for a moment in time. He was the one who really pushed him and wanted to get in to play football because of him. But I think it was the moment where Roy realized that his ability to add value was no longer on the field in the game. His ability to add value was to get out and coach. And again, coming back to Ted, he saw that opportunity and presented him this opportunity and said, you know what, I think you would be better playing in this position. You're still part of the team, but you're not the guy anymore. You're not the one scoring the goals. That's now Jamie's world. That's now the rest of the team's world. I really love that career transition that kind of happened in the show as well.
And super useful for us to be thinking about, do we have to be the star player? Are we measured by the star players that we develop around us? Part of our motivation in building the presenter program is that we don't want to be the star presenters. We want to have the new generation of people coming through and to be amazing at delivering those messages. And how can we help people get better at this stuff? That's part of our mojo, right? Is to pass it on. Big time.
Definitely.
Big time.
Hey there, just quickly jumping in to say I hope you've been enjoying this discussion about Ted Lasso as much as Sasha and I did, because we didn't stop, we kept going and recorded another 30 minutes. So we've decided to split this into a 2-part series. Join us next week as we discuss the rise and fall of Nate, plus a whole lot of other leadership lessons that came out of such an epic TV show. So have a great week and look forward to talking to you next week. All right, see ya, bye.